Hello, my name is Tash. I'm the Energy Alchemist, and today it gives me immense pleasure to have Herman here with me. Herman, I came to his work probably about a year and a half ago and ended up having a one-to-one interaction with him. And I was just saying to him a minute ago, one of the things that he said to me completely tilted everything and changed everything. When we talk about alignment, that's what it felt like. It felt like something just kind of clicking into place, right? And just everything that happened from there felt like it was coming from a stronger, deeper, more resounding place. So I have to say to you, thank you very much, Herman, for that, and welcome. It's a pleasure having you here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor.
So in this session, what we're going to do is really take your lens, your wisdom, and also reference it through the energy centers. But first of all, I just wanted to introduce people to you, people who may not have come to you, and just to give them a snapshot of where you come from, because I know that your lineage and your ancestry comes from the Shaolin Temple and from the Sui dynasty. So if you could just give us a bit of a snapshot of you and where you're coming from.
Well, this can be a long conversation, so let's try to make it into something very small and easy to digest. So picture this. I grow up. I don't have any idea why I'm different, why I can see things, hear things, feel things that the average person cannot. And then I see and I look at other people and I want to know why they suffer, why they have these issues, why they don't have the same solutions. And then I look at the different patterns. I'm like, well, I do this. I'm told to do this. They don't have or concept of what that is. Or I'm expected to do this type of exercise or eat a certain way, and everybody doesn't have the discipline to just restrict what they should and shouldn't have. And so that's where it started, where the first thing I had to learn was my discipline. Because growing up, my father had his own martial arts school. So he taught people how martial arts, the real definition of it, which means no martial, all art. And so when he taught a great deal of many people. And a lot of those people went on to be very, very successful in life. But when they first came to him, they were not very well to do. And so that discipline was brought to me. That same discipline is like every single day. So do you know when you get in trouble, in the old days, you have to write lines?
Yeah.
So I was always in trouble. And so that was like a good thing, because then I always had to write lines. But the problem was, I just thought, printing was good enough. And my father's like, no. And so he's like, that's not good enough. You have to do something more. So one time I saw his penmanship, and it was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. Every single stroke, every single curvature. And then I saw how he practiced same way. And so I thought I could just cut straight to the martial arts and quit the penmanship. And he's like, no. He's like, you're not going to watch any movies. You're not going to watch anything. He's like, you're too influenced right now at a young age. He said, you must have discipline first. And so what he did was hand me a pen and said, this does not even weigh half a pound. If you can't even control something that's so lightweight, how can you control anything that has any form of weight behind it? Whether that be an intention, whether that be an emotion, whether that be something else that drives you. You have to be able to control the slightest little thing so that when it's time to control the bigger things, that discipline is able to help you get through every single obstacle in life. And so when we train now, we don't just train physicality. You have to train mentality, so that once you train the mentality, then you allow the physicality to match that mentality, so that once all are matched, then spirituality is able to take over. But a lot of people, they don't take care of their mind. Their body is like a junk pool. And so spiritually, they think that they could just cut to the spiritual chase. But if you don't take care of the mind and the body, then you have nothing to cultivate, nothing to use to cultivate that soul.
That's a massive point, actually. And exactly like you're saying, a lot of us don't come to that information in a general kind of sense, it's normally left, because it's not in our school system, so it's normally left to the parents. And depending on where the lineage was coming from with the parents, you know, most people in the Western world haven't got that information. So let's start from the base, and let's start from, because you've already referenced the body, but if we were looking at the base, we're looking at the body, and we're also looking at the way that the body meets the earth. You know, how conscious are we of the feet that meet the earth, and how conscious are we of the energy in the earth? So when you actually think of the base and you think of our physicality, what comes up for you there?
So a lot of people can research anything on chakras, can research anything on where we came from. Anybody can research energy. But the issue that's at hand is you may research it, you take one idea from one person, then you hear someone else, then you mix that idea with something else and try to create your own, but then the truth is diluted, and it never go to the source like we talked about. Mm. And when they finally have the source look them right in front of their face, they can't recognize it because their ignorance is too high, and so then they miss the boat. Mm. And so when I think of like that root, it is so much deeper than that, because a lot of people don't realize if we are to ever master any other thing in life, discipline is the utmost priority, number one. Mm. So whenever we take this journey on of opening chakras or opening our channels, opening the passages, opening the meridians, it's not that you try it for one day or you try it for 1 month, oh, it didn't work. No, if you're going to do it, you have to commit to it for life. Mm. Because what happens is certain times of your life will open certain doors and certain gates will open, certain opportunities, certain maturity, certain things will happen. If you don't have that drive, that focus, that discipline to say, if I'm going to do this, it's because I'm going to do this for life, because this is what I want to do. This is what humans are meant to do. It's supposed to have that awakening, right? But a lot of people don't want to be awakened. They want to talk like they're awakened, but then their actions don't match their words. And so then the mentality and the physicality don't match. Mm. Mm. And so for the root, I absolutely think it's the most important place to start. But a lot of people only focus on the end game, right? They want to have the sweetness before the bitterness. And in Chinese, we say 心服好听, which means you have to have the bitterness first before you can understand what sweetness is after.
That's always the hardest one, isn't it? Is that the actual discipline and the training of the body, because normally what's involved with that is pain and discomfort, you know, mm-hmm. Especially at the beginning phases where you're falling to rise, to fall to rise again, you know, that kind of phase. Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable. And so what I'm hearing you saying is basically sticking with that, you know, sticking with that discomfort until you gain some kind of mastery, right?
And that's why when people look at movies and they see people do a fancy punch or a fancy kick, that doesn't mean anything. It's your stance that's the most important thing. Otherwise, if you fall over, you're useless. Mm. And so the first thing I trained was called Mapu, which is the horse stance. When I train people, they can't stand in that stance for longer than a minute, right? Because they can't stand for their own principles. They can't stand for their own values. And so what happens? They shake too quickly. And if the body shows what the innate habitual habits they have, then it will show they're least likely to follow through in what they say. Mm. And so by training the body, so you use the mind to train the body, then they serve each other. So you're trying to get them on the same frequency. So once you try to get them to align, and once they have cohesion, then you do that over many 10,000 times. That's the magic number. Once you do that, then you start to gain a little momentum. But everyone thinks they try it once, they're supposed to get momentum right away. It doesn't work that way. That's called entitlement.
So we're in it for the long game is what I'm hearing. we're basically, we've got to commit to that long game, right? And whatever spiritual practice, however that comes out, whether it's, you know, using the energy centers or whether it's using any sort of practice, it's like literally committing to it and planting yourself, rooting yourself in that commitment to it on a daily basis, right?
Correct. And that's why, can I share something with you, Tash?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So a lot of people, when they go through this chakras, they think that's the end all. And I just want to share with you that it is not. For a lot of people, that's a shock. For a lot of people, it's not. But it's not the end all. Why? Picture this. Let's sit in a meditation form. Let's meditate for the rest of our life for 40 years, and let's just focus on the chakras and just think that we're going to go achieve nirvana. Mm-hmm. Can that happen? But let's say mentality now, you have three things in play. So in Chinese, we call Samwan Chatpak. So that means there's three parts that we must master. The Samwan is the three jewels. Mm-hmm. So we have heaven, mm-hmm. we have earth, then we have person. If those three are interfered with, then your 7 emotions have no chance of being rid of. So what that means is you can't have one without the other. So if you only focus on the chakras, but you don't understand how what people consider to be heaven as a place you go, but they don't realize it's a consciousness that you embody, then they're trying to lie to themselves. And so what happens is when they lie to themselves, they speak a lot of untruths and they guide people the wrong way, do a lot of disservice. And so that's why when we understand in the traditional Shaolin way, Samwan Chatpak, you have to master where the heaven is, the consciousness, the emptiness, the beauty, that has like no shape, no form, no color, right? It's the unattachment. Then we understand earth. That's why we take care of it. That's why we have to learn how to manage not just what we stand on, but how we treat those that are around us, right? People don't even follow a simple rule of treat others as you wish to be treated because they don't no longer know how to treat people. And so what happens is they can't take care of the earth because they can't take care of that. So then when it comes down to person, our own person, there's nothing left because there's nothing to build merit. There's only debts and demerit. And so when you're trying to focus on the chakras, but let's say the Samwan is all disturbed and all tainted, then when you try to focus on the energetic center wheels, what you don't realize is the debts from your Samwan that you've done wrong from the past life from before affects your inability or ability to either open or to enlighten those energy centers. But if you have a lot of debt from a past life, or say your family did a lot of wrong to others, or let's say you were around and you saw a lot of people do wrong and you didn't do anything to help, a lot of these things become the debt. And so depending on what type of debt it is, it locks that energetic center. And when that energetic center is locked, until you understand the Samwan, the three jewels, and how that blueprint works and how you have someone to identify that so that you know, because a lot of people, we're so busy living our life, we can't see our own faults, we can't see ourselves, but we can see everything else, right?
Yeah.
And so for a lot of us, that's why when we're going through it, we have to have the humility that we don't know it all, that yes, we do need a little help, and yes, we do need to have that 1 degree deviation to maybe get on the right track like you did. Like maybe my brother did, or maybe my neighbor did, right? And so we have to make sure that once we are going to do the 7 chakras, those wheels, it also comes with the 3 jewels. And a lot of people don't understand how important they must be to blend. They must be in cohesion. Because if you just do the chakras and you don't have a good diet, you have so many diseases, mental disease, physical disease from the food and the garbage you put in. So then spiritually, you're starved. Then you have nothing to boost, no energy to increase or to feed the ability to open those wheels, to open that source, to open that vibratory frequency, to allow your mind and body to work together. Next stage, next stage, next stage. But if you just try to use one and not the other, what happens is one will open, one half will open, the other won't. And that's when you invite the darkness. And that's when people say, why did this happen to me? I've done so good. I'm doing this. I'm doing everything perfect. Why did this have to happen to me? It's because they didn't understand the basic blueprint. And this is far more in depth than we're covering. But this is like the basic synopsis of why people tend to go down a very dangerous hole when they don't understand, because they're not educated between the light and the dark. Yes, you need both, right? Because light is born from darkness, darkness is born from light. But if you don't understand the threshold, the ceiling, then you'll be consumed too much by one, and then the other one will suffer. And if you're not balanced, then you're basically telling your energetic being, your energetic self, that if you're not balanced, then everything else around you should be imbalanced. And so now we look at the planet and we take it from a planetary point of view and say, people want world peace, but if we don't take care of this first, then everything else around us cannot be at peace.
Yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? It starts on the inside and works its way out, doesn't it? One of the reasons why I use the chakras is because it basically takes us through all the forms of our expression, you know, every way that we exchange energy in the world, it's represented in some way, shape or form. And so for me, it feels like it's kind of like a bit of a tidy way to take us through, you know, the expression, and obviously to have your wisdom touch each of those expressions. So if we were to move up to the sacral, and we're moving up to the sensual body and moving up to the sexual body, but we're also moving up to that area of creativity and that area where we merge our energy and interact with the world around us, right? What comes out for you there?
So think of it this way. Say you built a house and your foundation wasn't completely symmetrical. It was on a slant. And let's say you didn't have the proper foundation, that you built it on, you know, loose mud. So when it rains, your whole entire thing will fall down the slope. What type of foundation would that be? Not good.
A very good one. Yeah.
Not a very good one.
Yeah.
So let's say that's you growing up now. You develop some bad habits immediately. You have attachments immediately. You have negative habits, negative thoughts, negative feelings, right? Negative diet right away, immediately, right? Because it's getting younger and younger and younger because the education's not there. And so let's say you now want to go into the second chakra, but you're growing up now and you have all these bad habits, and let's say the energy's stuck in this center now, then what happens? Then you overindulge, right? You have gluttony, you have all these emotions that you don't know how to control. And it's supposed to be, that is where you're supposed to learn at the basis to treat each other with the maximum amount of understanding and respect, so that once you understand each other and then you fully harmonize each other, man and woman, right? Yin and yang, right? Warm and cold. Once you fully harmonize that, then and only then can you look to maybe replicate it. Because remember, we as humans, we have cells. Those cells are going to do one of two things. It's going to want to live forever, and if it can't live forever, it wants to duplicate itself so that it can live longer to try to have another chance to perfect. That's called evolution. If we are going through this chakra right now, and we haven't even perfected how to treat each other, understand the woman, understand the man, understand the parents, understand the children, understand those that came before us, understand those that will come after us. If we don't understand that, then that chakra will never open, and we're lying to ourselves if we think it's open when we don't understand that there are debts accumulated to chakras based off of our ancestry. So when you look at a lot of people, they have a lot of negative connotations towards money, negative connotations towards maybe certain people, or maybe a certain type of demographic or certain thing. All of that negativity is stored inside of us. And then we carry and we carry and we carry, because the debts from our parents become the debts of the children. And if it hasn't been cleansed and hasn't been purified, you will keep repeating those same patterns until we learn to address it, identify it, give a solution with the blueprint to make sure that that energy center is no longer blocked so that it can flow.
Massive. That is really massive, right? Yeah, because most of us actually aren't really in touch with that blueprint, and it rules so much for us. Do you know what I mean? It rules so much for us in our day-to-day lives. And so there's a sense of doing a lot of, I want to say doing a lot of work, but there's a sense of unpacking a lot. Do you know what I mean? I know that there's been a lot of unpeeling in my life and in my world, you know, taking off the layers of ancestral collective, you know, mindsets that are no longer served, but even spending time recognizing what those might be or what they are.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot to be unpacked in that area, definitely, and a lot of clearing out of that area as well.
And that's why these, not just, I don't like to use the word sessions, but these interactions, that's the word, are so impactful. Because if you have someone that has developed certain gifts because their entire life has been dedicated towards helping people, then that person can really help open those chakras easier for you, because then they can see exactly where yours are stuck. And then once they give you the exact recipe, you apply the exact recipe, it is so much easier. But if you just blindly, without like looking, and you just think what you heard or you read something or someone told you something and you try to do it, it will take you 10,000 times more effort and hard work and obstacles to do it, as opposed to snap of a finger, it's done.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to know if you're doing something wrong, if it's difficult, then you're doing it wrong. Because all things that are meant to be doing for you at that moment have to be right. It has to move. It has to be able to show signs of those patterns that certain doors just open easier for you. But if you're consistently just obstacle, then you have to really question, are your methods really a good course of action?
What you were saying before about the ancestral line, and I tend to see that in the back of the body, and I tend to see, you know, that subconscious area. It's the area that we can't see back here. It's like when you go to the hairdresser and you get a mirror to look back here because you can't see, right? And ultimately, when you go and sit before someone who has actually developed their insight enough, they're able to shine the light back there and show you what you might be missing.
Exactly.
But yes, that ancestral element of really clearing out. And what I've been sensing as well is that the work that we do on ourselves here and now, it actually affects our ancestral line going all the way back, and it affects the ancestral line going all the way forward.
Correct. And for a lot of people, whenever they hear chakras or they hear spirituality, they're either all in or the walls are up, because that's not normal, that's not accepted. But here's a good analogy that maybe people can learn from. People understand companies, okay? They understand money because they think that's the highest value. Well, think of this as your company. If this company has too much debt, not enough assets, what happens? Gets sick. It becomes a disease, becomes a liability. So then this company, what happens when you have too much liability that you carry year forward, and you keep losing and you keep losing, what happens? Eventually, it goes bankrupt, right? Goes out of business. That's when people's health deteriorate. That's when people's will to survive goes out the window. That's why people talk about mental illness, but they don't understand mental illness is never standalone. Because like we said, it has to be in cohesion. So when they try to treat your mentality, but they're doing it so wrong, because it has to be the physicality that's expressed to allow this to accept it. But if you just think about it all day and just read books about it all day and someone just talks to you about it all day, it's only here. So basically you're saying you're cut off from the rest of your body. But as soon as you apply yourself and you say, okay, you know what? I got an issue. Let's say I have anxiety. You know what? Here's something I can do. How about I go hug 5 different people? How about I go plant 4 different seeds? How about I go help 3 people that I don't know? How about I go help my brother, my sister, my family, a stranger? How about we go and give someone a meal? How about we go and help someone and give them a ride? Just something that gives something that you gave for no other reason. That's called grounding. Nobody's grounded anymore. And so when you explain the basic principles of a blueprint, it's so hard because they expect everything by a press of a button, that everything should be all fancy and aesthetically pleasing. And if it's not, it's discarded.
Such deep wisdom, really. So when we actually move up to the solar plexus, which obviously is the center of our identity, it's the center of our personal presence, it's the center of what I would call our thumbprint from source, you know, our divine essence is in our solar plexus. What comes out for you in the solar plexus?
Several things. So for instance, if you ever got hit in that area, it would not only wound you, but it also blocks the energy center from the rest of the body being able to be nourished and to be able to be replenished. So that's why when you look at people that fight, or they always protect this area. Why? Because the organs are there, but also they know the solar plexus is the weakest area, that if it got hit in that area, it could paralyze you. So think of it this way. Remember how we talked about the 3 jewels, the Samwan, and then we have the 7 emotions. When we talk about the 7 emotions, it's to rid of each emotion for each wheel of frequency. It's to rid of one emotion. Problem is, people are trying to gain and live more in the emotion. They'll watch a show, they'll watch it 20 times so they could cry 20 times harder every time, so that it consumes them, and that just brings more drama, and it closes that energetic center. They think, oh, it's good to feel this way. No, because you live in that for too long, it becomes a disease. It owns you. And if we're all about an attachment, if we're all about the ability to see past the physical realm into the metaphysical, the longer we become more dramatic, the more we indulge in the emotion, the more we infatuate with the emotion, the longer the debts will become binded to us, the stickier they get, the harder it is to pull away from that karmic debt, from all of those things that have been done before. It's very difficult. And then when people age now, what happens is they think, oh, well, you know what? I've already lived my life. Then the ignorance starts to kick in. And so in this center, what happens is, if it's not cared for, let's say the energy wasn't mastered in the root, then wasn't mastered at the second, then now we come to the third, still not mastered, but it's still trying to get up, because energy will always rise, like heat, right? Always rise, always meant to rise. So that's where people think in religious beliefs, they think heaven's up there, but it's not. It's the ability to ascend consciousness through each individual level. But if we cannot transcend that level, which means master that one level in all aspects, like how you say with the mirror from behind, side, front, if we cannot transcend that, you'll never ascend. And if you cannot ascend, you'll be stuck in that for too long, and that's the disease you will carry with you from life to life to life. And that's what your children will carry. That's what people you're related to that hang around you too much will carry. Your social groups will carry, because misery loves company. And so if you feel that you are miserable, and you can think of every negative thing and find every negative thing of why things don't happen well for you, all of that shuts down the chakra. And once it's shut down, it's very difficult to open up without some help, because you already told the body a neurochemical feeling and reaction to seal itself.
I've never really seen it that way before, so this is quite interesting, because what I'm hearing you say, I tend to see things in frequencies and energy waves, right? So basically, there are times when we get addicted to a certain frequency, and we loop that frequency, we play that frequency over and over again. And so sometimes somebody would experience a particular emotion, let's say it was sadness, or let's say it was something heavy or painful, let's say, and they were replaying that emotion. They're watching things that replay that emotion. They're talking to people and they're replaying that emotion without realizing that. And life obviously is bringing them the scenarios that allow them to replay this emotion, without realizing that the actual addiction to that frequency that's creating all of these outside patterns. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Exactly. And then the reciprocity means that because that one pattern that you felt that came into your level of existence, that you thought that needed to be replicated. But what happens is that's not true. It means that it needs to be given a solution, so that once the solution's in place, then you can graduate to the next grade. You don't go to kindergarten and teach someone trigonometry, because if they don't understand the fundamentals of math, then there's no way they can get to the next level, the highest level of understanding. And so for us, if we expect to go to the next chakras, How can we do that, but yet we suffer from the three jewels? So mentally, physically, and spirituality is going to be suppressed. It's going to be so disease-ridden that when we try to work on those emotions, they are stuck in those centers. So then if this is stuck and suppressed, this is stuck with no energy to feed it, they don't feed each other, then what happens? Then you just exist. And that's how people cannot find purpose.
Wow, that's that's a good. So basically, it's a complete divide, right? A complete no communication between one thing and another.
And when I do these events and when we do these calls, it's always to help people find their purpose, because that's the one thing people don't have anymore in this world. The most amount of things that people send me, they don't know who they are. They don't know. And so we have to break it down with the blueprint like we're doing, so that they can understand and so that they can progress.
So when we move this energy up into the heart center for me is that sort of exactly that word that you said previously, reciprocity, right? It's the giving and the receiving, and how open are you to receive, how open are you to give. It's also the center and the frequency of the love vibration. For me, I've gotten to respect the heart so much, because when it really kicked in that the heart was the conductor of the blood in our body and the blood holds emotional signatures, it really then, you have so much of a profound respect for the heart when that really kicks in. So when you feel into the heart, what comes up for you there in terms of wisdom and perspective?
So a lot of people have a lot of trouble with the word love. So whether it be they were hurt from it, whether it be they don't feel they're good enough for it, whether it be they didn't have it growing up, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with it. Why? Because there is no word that is a synonym for love. They can describe an action that tries to show the emotion of love, but there's no actual synonym for love, because it's so powerful. Why? Because it cannot be just experienced on a physical level. It has to be experienced on many different levels at the same time, so that it can be fully expressed. If you only experience it on one level, you rob the other levels from it. Then you live too much. Say you only want the physical level of it, so you always want to be loved, you always want attention. Well, then what happens is that person will become very, very stuck up, because they will think that this is all that matters around them, and it's so much more than that. Because once the attention goes away, what happens? Then they realize they need the actual real love, not just attention, not infatuation. A lot of people misconceive the difference between love and infatuation. If you don't know the difference, you will be fooled, and you will fool yourself most of your life. And so when I hear of love, it's not something that can be seen, not something that can be tasted, not something that necessarily can be touched, not something that can be smelt, right? Not something that's necessarily heard, but it's something that's experienced, right? So when someone tells you, I love you, your parents tell you, I love you, it satisfies all of those emotions that we talked about, the fulfillment. Because we have to understand, everyone will always be in pursuit of happiness, but it will never be enough. Why? Because happiness in itself cannot necessarily be achieved for a long, prolonged period of time. It is just a neurochemical state that we put ourselves in. But fulfillment is something that we allow ourselves to be in for a greater period of time, that can be sustained for a longer period of time, that trumps happiness. Because once you're fulfilled in health, you're fulfilled in knowledge of wealth, you're fulfilled in great people surrounding family, you're fulfilled knowing that you have the security in life, you're fulfilled knowing that those that you're around, that you care for, they're much better because of what the difference you made in the world. That's the fulfillment. And if you can really go for the fulfillment and not just go for short gained happiness, then you would get rid of the infatuation and understand how love, when people say love is the answer, a lot of people don't understand that, because they haven't really fulfilled themselves. They don't have the full fulfillment.
So much about that is understanding what your needs are. You know,
Of course.
if you have no idea what your needs are, it's really hard to feel fulfillment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like as human beings, we have, exactly like you were saying, really fundamental needs, you know, the need
Mm-hmm.
to be around people, the need to communicate, the need to make a difference in the world, the need to express who we are and to be accepted and embraced for all of that. I mean, there's just like fundamental base level needs that we all have, that unless those are met, there's no fulfillment, really, is there?
And that's why at the root, if fear is the thing that blocks it, then when that energy tries to go to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh chakra, you're getting maybe not even 1% of the energetic being of you to allow that essence, that divinity to rise, to ascend. And so if fear is the one controlling you at the root chakra, then it dooms all the other six. And then if it dooms the other six, then they will never fully open. And if they can never fully open, then when you try to just meditate on it, you just try to think it, you try to read books on it, you have to be very careful. Because if you don't learn to eliminate that fear, and we show you how to do that, but if you don't learn how to do that, it will rule your life, it will trap you, and it will allow that darkness to consume you.
That's a big one, right? Fear and the release of fear. I mean, because the emotion of fear is something that I feel we all experience at any one time or another. I mean, it's part of our frequencies, let's say. But there's a difference between the fear that actually comes in and out as a warning and the fear that is continuously in our energy field because of a particular loop. That's what I'm hearing you saying, right?
And that's why for a lot of people, they don't want to face it. And so they do everything to suppress it. They do everything to lie to themselves about it. And all they have to do is to address all the things that they don't want to. If you can address everything that you don't want to, that's the beginning, because that's the root. But if you cannot, and you try to go to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you'll never reach it. And you'll get maybe 1% of it. You'll get maybe a flicker of hope from it. And then the flame goes away because it's not enough to sustain it so that you can transcend that level of existence, that level of being, of that chakra.
When we move this energy up into the throat, we're moving the energy up into our expression, we're moving the energy up into our vibration, and also our ability to command in the world. That's what comes out for the throat. You know, when you stand in your power and you're really standing, the stance that you were talking about previously, when you're standing really strongly for that, it comes out vibrationally in the throat energy. So what comes up for you for the throat?
Think of it this way. When you think of social media, the number one word that comes to my mind is lie. Everybody tries to put up a facade. Everyone tries to put up something that's not necessarily real, that's just looks pretty and aesthetic, correct? Not everyone, but majority. This is blocked by the lies. So when people say live your truth, well, why is it that when people say they're going to do something, they never do it? Because if it's blocked by lies, then anything they say is never matched by the body for the action. So mentally and physically, they don't match. So the action will never get done. So if we were talking about living your truth, that means everything you say can be valued as gold. In the old days, they would say that because it had so much weight to it, that if you shook someone's hand and you said you promise you're going to deliver a service, you're going to get your goods at X amount of time, this is going to be a partnership for life. You're going to get married, you're going to say, I do, right? That's as good as gold. But because of all the lies now, it blocks this. So you can never trust anyone because they're so busy lying. They think I can get away with it and no one's going to know about it. I'll just keep doing it. If it means that I get ahead and you don't, I'll just keep doing it. And so then the lies compound. And by the time the truth comes out, it is too bitter because it will all come out at one time. And it all starts to creep out. And when it starts to flow and all those lies have been exposed, that's when a lot of people cannot handle it. And then that's when a lot of the mental illness and disease really take over. because they can't live with the accountability. They can't live with the responsibility of how we should be treating one another.
The thing about expressing, exactly like you were saying, you know, just allowing yourself to see the uncomfortable, shady, kind of like disharmonious elements of yourself, allowing yourself to see those and to just face them without judgment. And the big word there is judgment, because I feel like we put so many judgments on ourselves, the lack of acceptance of who we are and what we're feeling in any one moment in time. And we're assuming that everybody else is judging us in the same way. And the lies that you're talking about, really, for me, those judgments that we've made that we can't really face within our own selves. And we're trying to sort of like cover it up. And it doesn't work after a while, because it's not in alignment with the truth, and the truth will always prevail, because the truth is that energy that you were talking about rising, that's what we would say is truth, right? So eventually it's going to rise past the blockage and cause a problem, because it's going to come out.
Exactly.
But yeah, sometimes, I mean, I witness it over and over again with other people. I also witnessed it with myself. The thing that you're actually so afraid of, as soon as you stand in front of it, really, truly stand in front of it with love and non-judgment, it's not that it disappears. It's not that it becomes not, you know, comfortable straight away, but it reduces to something that actually you're like, I can't believe I spent so much time and so much energy on this thing, you know?
Yes.
That's what I'm really hearing, because yeah, like I say, I see it over and over again. I felt it over and over again within my own self. When I was talking about peeling off layers previously, it's coming to that part where you've just been really uncomfortable, really contracted. And a lot of times you need to get yourself in front of someone, exactly like we were saying, you know, someone that can actually hold space and see the blinkered areas. But so worth it for the relief that you get at the end of it, right?
Because it's like trying to keep tabs on like all these different bank accounts. How much money did I put in here today? How much did I borrow for this one? How much did I take for this one? And so when it's now time due to pay, you don't know which one, how much did I take from this one? How much is due from this one? And you're all scatterbrained. So you lost track of all the lies. There's no more accounting of it. So it has to be exposed.
And there's such an easier way, right?
So much easier. Imagine if we just had the one account that we were responsible for, then the energy would not be wasted. It would not be dispersed in all these lies. And then if they were not dispersed and wasted, then it can be concentrated. When it can be concentrated, then you're able to work on that area longer. You're able to give more to that area. And the longer you do it, the easier it is. And then when someone helps you, it's so much easier to really open that center, that wheel. But if you just think you got this, you try to do it yourself, it'll be very difficult, because remember what we talked about, those lies?
Yeah.
A lot of people lie to themselves and they try to self-doctor themselves, and that's very dangerous.
When we move up to the third eye, we're moving up to that place of intuition, insight, the vision of the road ahead. The connection to also what you were talking about, you know, the sense of purpose. I feel a lot of that tends to be connected up here as well, because it's where we either have blockages, so we don't allow ourselves to see past something, or we're open to actually see and feel all the opportunities that are available to us, because there isn't kind of like that dialogue of judgment, or that dialogue of fear that we were just talking about. When you feel into the third eye, what comes up for you then?
So this part scares a lot of people, so it's because it's truth, and this is how I've trained my entire life, okay? We have such strict disciplines in order to create like these routines for training the mind, training the body, training the soul, so that each level you graduate, so that every time you think, oh, it's so difficult, but yet you look back and you say, look how far we've come. So when it comes to the third eye, a lot of people, they just want pineal gland open and so they can see things, so that they can know your past life, so that they could think that they're better than other people, so that they could try to create something physical out of thin air. And they use it for all the wrong things. And it's not for anything physical at all, other than to be able to see past the physical realm into the metaphysical. So remember, you've asked me, how is it that I can see? Or a lot of people ask, how is it that I can do what I do? It's because I don't see in the physical realm. I'm able to see beyond that into the metaphysical, and that's where it starts. Remember we talked the root? Mm-hmm. Go there, and then whatever is wrong there, that's what you manifest into your physical being. So a lot of people are trying to get healthy in the physical being, but metaphysically, this is where all the issues are, from a past life, from your parents, the ancestry, everything that went wrong from before. And so that is what you have embodied. And if you haven't corrected it, you will continue to repeat the same cycle, the same pattern. Everything around us has patterns and clues. And so this third eye can only be opened when you understand the 3 jewels we talked about, and to eliminate all 7 emotions. Samwan Chakra. Once you do that, then and only then can it open on its own. It can never be forced. It can never be done by somebody else, but someone can guide you with it, but no one else can do it for you. When this area starts to open and when it starts to receive more messages, it starts to become more psychic, or you're able to tap into different frequencies that the average normal person cannot. That's where the gifts are really built. And everyone has a gift. They just haven't done what it takes to discover and earn it back, so to speak. And so when people say, oh, you can read people, well, not just that, so much more. That's just the one that you've seen. That's just one I am known for. And so when this has been disciplined enough and all the other chakras have been opened, then they fuel this. So that when this is fueled, then it's able to give that gift to others. This is what you can do to save your life. This is what you do to save your child's life. This is what you do to save the planet. This is what because you see everything so crystal clear, like a diamond, right? And so we think, well, why is it that this is so sought after? Why is it that for centuries and centuries, many texts, many different people have talked about it, but we don't see many people, if any, that have fully opened it? So if you ever want to know, remember we talked about mentally has to match physically? Mm-hmm. So let's say someone talks about it and they say they have a gift physically, but yet when you look at them, they're not really healthy. They don't take care of themselves. They have terrible habits, and they are very, very niche and only understanding one little branch of the whole tree. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not disrespecting them. It's just they need to broaden that spectrum. So for everyone listening to this, don't just listen to the words, feel it. Why? Because our eyes are connected to the liver. So when we get angry, we cannot see straight. We make mistakes. Not enough blood can get to the vision. That's why they tell you never drink and drive. The blood is intoxicated. When the blood is intoxicated, what happens? Energetically, it cannot feel this. So then we don't see. Right? Then we understand, okay, we protect the liver. Okay, then we protect the kidneys. Our kidneys protect the hearing. So then we're like, okay. So then that's what it means by see no evil, hear no evil. Because then you protect what goes in, what you allow in, then you can choose and control what you allow out. But if everyone just chooses to allow anything in, eat anything, listen to anything, be anything, except the good things, then they become that environment. They become the things they allow in, that darkness. And then if the kidneys are damaged, then what happens? Then your breath. Watch someone who's always upset or angry. Breath has not been mastered. So the sense and the feeling of breath cannot be controlled. You cannot invite more of what's known as from the metaphysical, the ether, into the physical to transform and to transmute, so that you can use as alchemy like you are to really use that energy and change how the neurochemical event happens for your own benefit in your own control. That's why the breath is so important. Now, if the breath cannot be controlled, what's next? then the heart takes the burden because not enough oxygen in the blood. So what happens? Pain. You feel pain, more injury. And what happens? Then you try to fill it with taste. So then you eat anything you want. You do whatever you want. You taste this, you taste that, more sugar, more fat, more cholesterol. So-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. And so you see that your five senses are not meant to be pleasured. That's your security system. If you get rid of the 7 emotions and learn to take care of the 3 jewels, the security system itself allows itself to be open so that the third eye can be revealed, so that the third eye can be really opened, so the third eye could actually allow itself to function.
What are the 7 emotions?
So it's like anger, grief, hate, gluttony, jealousy, forgot the other 2, but there's 2 of them are like almost the same, but it's what happens is it's the basic 5, but 2 are almost the same. And what happens is 7 emotions are like, how do we call it? Poison. And so with each chakra, if you do not open the right way, and if you try to ascend too quickly, and you're stuck in that energetic frequency for too long, then the others will suffer because you're trying to take all the energy to focus on the one. And then if those emotions take over, then they block every single chakra. They block the meridians in the body. They block your energetic centers. They block your ability to feel the light into it because you allowed the darkness to consume
it. Do the work is what I'm hearing, right? The work of actually release, the work of clearing out is so important.
The hardest thing for humans to do is what?
Change is what I want. That what comes to mind first is change.
Let go.
Let go.
You have to let go first before you can change. So that's why you have to let go of all those 7 emotions, so that once you do that, then you give yourself a chance to allow the light to infuse in that frequency to really transcend that level so you can graduate and ascend. But if you cannot let go and you cannot transcend, ascension is not possible.
And when we get to the crown, really we're talking about universality at this point. We're talking about our interconnectedness with the world, with the universe at large. We're talking about divinity and the source of our animation, let's say. What comes out for you at the crown?
Most people will never get there because of their bad habits, their desires, their being of trying to be normal, when there's no such thing as normal. There's normal for you. It's not normal for everybody else, right? Because there's certain things you like, the next person beside you doesn't like, but it doesn't mean that you're better than the next or vice versa. It just means their path of transcending that level of existence may be a little different than yours. Because of the choices their forefathers, their foremothers made before them, right? That karmic debt that has been carried over, everyone's path is a little different because of that debt. And so in order to reach here, when people do the meditation we have on YouTube for free, they have such a feeling, they have such a experience. Why? Because all the breath comes from here. But when people breathe, they only allow it to come from here. So they miss here and they miss here. And so what happens is if they stay here for too long and they lie all the time and the darkness is situated, then the breath is stolen and they'll never speak truth anymore. That's why when you breathe, it must always come from here, so that once the breath always enters that way, then it goes like from here directly. In Chinese, it's called Bawei in Chinese medicine, right? The main gate comes from there. It goes right down the spine, right into the center of the body. The spine guides it. And when that happens, that is the perfect posture that allows it to align. a lot of people, you look in today's world, are like this. Cell phone, laptop, TV, right? Everything is like this, as opposed to being like this. And if you can't be like this, then those chakras will never be able to align properly, because if it's just crooked, it's like when you look on a road, when it's straight away, there's less chance of, disaster. But as soon as the road has a bend, as soon as it has an interchange, as soon as there's merging, what happens, right? Chances of collision increases tenfold, because it's not straight. So for us, must make sure it's straight, so that once we do that, then when we completely aligned, when let's say for instance, all 7 have been opened and completely aligned and practiced day in, day out, and the 3 jewels have been protected, and those feed this feeds this, and they're all open, and you have purpose, and you give others purpose, then your physical attributes will show. Not just what you say, but what you do will actually speak 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. So for instance, there was a lady, can I share a quick story with you?
Absolutely.
There was a lady I met. She was, I believe, I don't want to give a title or a name, but she claimed to be psychic or something special, okay? She came up to me when I was a kid, and she looked at me, and she would not stop staring at me, and it was kind of creepy, because it was like, why are you right here? You're invaded my space, right? So it's a little creepy. But so we talked magnets. She just wanted to be around, because it's something that said, I had to share something with you. And at the time, she didn't even know what the message was, and she just came out and said to me, you're special. So she took my hand, and she's like, she can read palms. So I said, okay, and I'm a little kid, so I'm just thinking, like, be nice to people, okay? You don't want to be rude. So she reads my palm. Her eyes open up so big, her mouth drops. She drops everything in her arms. She's carrying a bag. She dropped down on the floor, and she started crying. She's like, no one has what you have. I said, what do you mean? If you look on the palm of my hand, see this line goes right across?
Yeah.
On both palms? That's what she was crying at.
Wow.
Because the same knowledge that I bestow upon you today, the same knowledge I had when I was a kid. And when I share it with her, she thought she wanted to learn from me. She thought that she had to get messages from me. She had to get help from me. And here she was at the time, probably in her 60s, and I was not even 5 or 6. But she looked at my hand, and she said, no one has a palm like yours. If you look at everyone's hand, always broken. This line, always broken. Never straight.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. All my ancestry, all my past lives harmonized to really help give people their purpose, help allow people to discover that purpose, so that they no longer have to feel in the gray area or the dark. They can allow the light to really shine, so that they can no longer waste their life. They can make every second count. That's a gift.
And it's amazing that you know your gift, Herman, because we're all basically, you're sharing your gifts all over us, which is absolutely amazing. The world feels like it's a better place because you're in it. And the reason why I say that is because there's a sense of part of your purpose, from what I've witnessed, is helping people to actually align to their own truth, their own purpose, their own reason for being, the point of them being here. And for me, there's that is a road of transformation for many. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, certainly with me, but also with us as well. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute honor to be here, and it's always great to see you again.